Run. Okay, let's continue where we left off. And now what we're going to do now is we're going to just add an x-cloak. X-cloak just a meaning, just display none. All right, we need to create this little variable, this one right here. So if we go to our app resources, CSS, on the app CSS, just create a variable called x-cloak and just set the property to display none. Okay, and then you open up your terminal and then you just do npm run dev just to compile your Tailwind classes. All right, so this is just going to be an Alpine.js class or x-cloak that just sets the display to be none. Okay, so while that's busy, so in the update view right here, so we got our x-cloak in there. Right, the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually create that div that displays this body right here to be inside its own little div. Right, so what we want to do now is I want this part to show, because the x-cloak, as you can see, everything is inside that component, inside that div. And this x-cloak, meaning it must be displayed as none. But I don't want all of this to be displayed none. I want this body still to show. So we got another Alpine.js. So let's just create a div, okay, and move this inside that div right there. Okay, and then we got another property called x-show. All right, so this means basically to actually show is basically the opposite of x-cloak. X-show just meaning show it. Right, in this case, we will say this if we're not editing the reply. Okay, so then display this. Okay. Now the next thing that we want to do is we want to add a couple of classes on this. As you can see, my mix is finished there. I've got my HDD drive, and it's a bit slower than my SD, so that's why it took so long. All right, the next thing that we want to do is we want to create our reply. So this is going to be displayed flags. Let's just give it a position actually of relative, because the button that we want to display this button that we're going to display on the inside here, I want that to be position absolute. Okay, so let's quickly create that button. Okay, this is going to be our edit button. We can actually use that other button that we created for our show. If you guys remember, we got our link right here. As you can see, we've got a link, secondary, primary, or danger. We're going to use that link. So let's just create a link. X link, okay, and I'm just gonna put it secondary. Okay, and between the thing, I'm just gonna put this as do that. Now let's do it anyway. Edit. Just make sure you spell it link, so that's why I didn't get my underline. Okay, so that I can go to the component itself. Okay, and what I want to do is I want to give it a class absolute, and I want to be at top. Just say 2 down from the top and right of 2 as well. Okay, let's save it and see if we can see it. Now, as you can see, we got our little edit button right here. Okay. Just edit the cursor for pointer, so if you actually hover over the button, it can just show that the button is clickable. Right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to add a clickable event basically on this. So if the person clicks on the event, what must it do? All right, so what we want to do is we're going to do X. This is just Alpine.js property. Okay, so we want to put X on click. All right, so what must happen when the click button is when the person presses the button? We want to set the edit reply, and we want to set that basically to true. Okay, so That's what we're going to do. So if the person clicks this button, we want to set the edit reply, which is going to be this right here. We're going to set that property in a second. Want to edit that reply, we want to set that to true. And on the next tick, we want to basically focus. Function, arrow function, and we just want to focus. Spell. Right. So that's what we're going to do when we click the edit button. Right. So now let's quickly create this X show button for our form right here. All right. So this is going to be an X show, and that's going to equal to reply, edit reply. Let's see if we see this form now, if we actually click that button. Right, so if we click the button, as you can see, we got the save right there. So if we refresh it, right, so click edit, we see the save. Okay, so we can actually put anything in there. Let me just demonstrate that we're actually getting it from there. Okay, so we can change this to be, this is a new. All right, let's just save it. Click the edit button, we can see it comes from that form right there. All right, so we know it's coming from there. So what we want to do, this to be, actually we want this to be now our input field of our reply to make it editable so that we can actually change it if we want to. All right, let's do that quickly. All right, so let's do that. All right, so we got our edit reply right there. Next thing that we want to do is we got our form. Remember this form, when we click it, we go to the update reply, which is this reply right there. I'm going to do a couple of die and dumps just to kind of demonstrate and things like that. Okay, so let's quickly create an input field of a type of text. This is just image stuff. And this is basically going to be our reply new body. Just remember this, what I'm referencing here. Okay, it's not under the name, but just bear with me. This new reply body is going to be this reply new body. Okay, so this is the input field. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to create a wire model to bind actually that model. Okay, so we're going to do a wire model, and we're going to link up that model right there. But what we want to do is we want to do a lazy, because I don't want the model to be updated continuously. I want it to wait for the button and stuff like that to be. Okay, so we want to include that to that be, as you can see, it brings us that reply new body right there. Okay, so let me just, there's a couple of fields that we need to put in here. So we've got our wire model. If I save it, it will format it back because of our beautify, but bear with me. All right, the next thing we want to do is we want to create that x ref. You guys remember this ref right here, this one right here, is the one that I want to reference. Remember, we called it text input. Okay, so we want to call that the same thing. Okay, so this is going to be our text input. If you're naming something else, just name it here as well. All right, the next thing that I want to do, X, this is all Alpine.js stuff, X on. So basically what must happen. So if the user press enter, we want to set the edit reply basically to false. So edit reply, okay. X on, okay, going ahead of myself, X on key down dot enter. So if the person press enter, what do I want to happen? I want to set the edit reply equal that to false. Okay, and the next one is X on escape. So if the person press the escape button, so key down, escape, what must happen? I want the same thing to happen. Edit reply equal to false. So let's see if it works. As you can see, it formats it back. That's why I put it underlined so that you guys can easily see it. All right, so let's quickly go to the browser again. All right, as you can see, we got that now. So if I refresh, let's just refresh quickly. So if I click the edit, you can see it brings me the input field. And if I press escape, you can see it removes it. If I press it again, if I press enter, it removes it as well. So that's basically the functionality that x-on and key down does, just to make it a good, friendly user experience. Right, the next thing that I want to do is I want to have two buttons. All right, the button must be either a submit button. All right, remember we're going to have a submit button needed to actually submit the form in order to change it. So we're going to have two buttons here. We're going to have cancel button. So if the user doesn't like, so we're going to put cancel. And the other one is going to be the submit button to save the form. Okay, we're just going to go through the save. So this is going to be the two buttons right here. Okay, so that's going to be underneath in our form. So if they press the save button, they can save the form. If they want to cancel, they can cancel it. All right, so let's quickly do that. Right, now the first thing that we're going to need in this button, this one is we can just going to call it a type of button. Okay, so what do I want to happen? We can obviously give it a little bit more styling, but x on. Okay, so x on click. Okay, on the click, what we want to do is we want to set that edit reply equal that to false. Right, so that's what we want to do. So if the person presses the cancel button, they can actually just change the reply, change the form, don't do anything. The next thing we want to do is we want to do a type. This one is going to be our submit button. So we can just do the type submit. And we want to do the same thing, x on click, just copy it. Just speed it up. Right, so if they press the submit button, it actually submits the form and it actually changes the text. As you can see, we've got our reply, we've got our cancel, we've got our save right there. So I press cancel, it cancels it. But if I want to press save, it will actually save the form. Right, now what I want to do is I want this to be underneath the input field because I want this field to be a width of full. I want it to span the full width of it. Okay, so let's quickly style it quickly. Right, to our input field, let's see, we've got our name there. We just give it a class of width of full, shadow inner, BG gray 200 or just 100, border none. Let's see what it looks like now. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a div for our two buttons, just to kind of style everything in the div itself. And just give it a class. Right, so basically margin top, space X, and text extra small. And I want this to be a red one and this one a green. So I'm just going to give it a class as well. Just a text green. This one is just going to be a text red. Do that. So as you can see, we've got our two buttons right there. So we can either cancel or save, but this is a bit too small. Just going to make it SM. We can obviously replace this inputs right here with icons. But for me, I'm just going to leave it as save or cancel. Right, so in here, let's just add something. Updated, okay, and press save. As you can see, it updates our reply right there. And if I press cancel, so it's working now as intended. So let's just delete that and just press save. As you can see, it saves right there. All right, so the next thing, obviously mine is a bit slow right now. My SSD is not available at the moment. Info repairs, that's why it updates so slowly right there. All right, the next thing I want to do is I don't want anybody to actually do any updates to the form, to the reply itself, if the update doesn't belong to them. All right, and I'm going to do that in the next one where we can add some authorization to the form. So we're going to use, to make sure, as you guys remember when we created the job, and we in our controller, just to make sure that nobody that's not authorized to actually do that and stuff like Right. So that will be it for the video. So if you like it, please give it a like. If you don't, please give it a dislike. Positive or negative feedback are always appreciated. Right. Thank you guys, and hope you really find this useful. If you don't, yes, you're already knowledgeable and don't need it, but I think there's some people that still can learn from this. All right. Thank you guys. See you in the next one.